All right, well, welcome to the Lyons Share, where we talk family, faith, football, finance, and fun. This episode is brought to you by Mitch Lyons Wealth, your best game plan to protect, grow, and win retirement. And today's episode, we have a great guest on, a guy that's near and dear to my heart. Was my tight end coach in Pittsburgh, and quite frankly, kept me in the league probably as I was on the outside looking in when I left Atlanta unceremoniously with a coaching change there. And so I'd like to welcome to the show Mike Mularkey. Mike, welcome. Thanks for coming on, buddy.
Oh, Mitch, glad to be here. Really fortunate to join your podcast. This is
Yeah,
cool.
well, I appreciate it, and I appreciate you. Just to let our listeners know, I mean, I played my first 4 years in Atlanta, drafted by Jerry Glanville, who was trying to use a tight end a little bit more, in addition to the run and shoot offense that the Falcons were running, which I played quite a bit my rookie year, and then Jerry got fired, and then I had June Jones, who's a true run and shoot guy, so I didn't have a lot of have a lot of reps. I had good job security. I was the only tight end on the roster every year, but didn't have a lot of upside. So when he got fired, I didn't have a lot of people knocking on my door, and fortunately, the Steelers called, and that was because Mike saw something on film apparently that must have intrigued him. So he gave me opportunity to come in, and we kind of hit it off from the get-go. And they were looking for a backup for Mark Bruner, and fortunately, I fit the bill. So I was glad to join you there. So thank you for that, for keeping my career alive at that point.
Well, you had a lot of tread on your tires still.
I
And
did, and I blew through them.
I was always looking for big physical tight ends. I had one with Bruner, but had to have two bookend ones. That was my ideal offense. And you guys, I thought you were feared in the league when we would play teams. Just the effort and the physical toughness you guys played with made it so much fun for me to coach because that's what I love.
Yeah.
But it helped our offense. We won a lot of games without having one of these Kelsey type tight ends. We
Yeah.
won a lot of games.
Yeah. Well, I loved it because I came from Michigan State. George Pearl is an old Steeler guy himself, and it was
Right.
all about toughness and running the ball. And so to join Pittsburgh and have the bus and be able to block for him and just kind of have that pound mentality. And what I loved about you, Mike, was our times in the keeping our little fine system going where if your picture was in the paper, you got fined, and it was always Bruner because he was the starter, so we'd always get him for the picture in the paper fine. But the other thing is hey, if you jumped offside, you dropped a pass, or we had to add to the kitty, but you also made it positive in games. Hey, if you're on your guy to the whistle, probably was a NFL salary cap violation because you'd pay like $2 if we were on our guy at the whistle sometimes. But
It was the best money I ever invested. It was
yeah,
$2 if you were on your guy, and if your guy gave you, we called it the look. He
oh
like
yeah.
looked at you like, "Well, I mean, what are you doing? Quit doing it." Then he would get another dollar. But if he couldn't control himself and he took a swing at you, it was double. And
That was big time.
you guys would argue on Mondays. That is definitely the look. It was so important to get an extra buck.
And it
I think
was peanuts, right? And we
I
take the
probably
pot.
spent $500. It was the best investment I ever made because you guys, I mean, you just crush people every
Well,
single
I
play.
was going to do it anyway because that's all I knew. That's how I like to play the game because I wasn't ever the most athletic, fast tight end and all that stuff. So I knew where my bread was buttered, but it made it fun, and I always loved that. And the cool thing with you, Mike, is you played the same position, right? You played tight end for the Vikings and Steelers actually, and among your 33 years in the league, 9 of them were as a player. So you got it. You knew what the grind was every day. And what I always appreciated was just the respect you showed, and the understanding that hey, it's sometimes you don't have the best play in the world, but there's no sense beating you up about it. But make the corrections and move on, and let's get better. So
No, it
that was
certainly, yeah, it certainly helps
yeah.
playing that position because I think it's one of the most grueling, difficult positions. You're asked to do what, the 300 plus linemen do by blocking big defensive ends. And then you got to turn around and run routes like wide receivers, and your body's really not built to do both. And I mean, it's just physical. The physical strain on your body is unbelievable. And I don't think people, plus to have to know as much as you do, especially when we like our offense was shifts and motions and personnel group. And I mean, we had things, we were big deception, which I always was. You had to be pretty smart to play that position. And fortunately, I had guys like I didn't have to spend a lot of time extra tutoring. They got it, and they played fast, and that was important to me.
And if you're watching this, over Mike's shoulder is I believe you said the 1989 NFL Picture of the Year.
Yeah, that was a pitcher against the Miami Dolphins. We were getting beat pretty soundly by Dan Marino. It was about 150 degrees.
And rainy.
Fortunately, the rain came in, cooled it off, and we came back to beat them, I think 35-14. But it was the most rain I've ever been in. I mean, it was up
Yeah.
to our ankles on the sideline, and it just changed. It made the rain was like, okay, we can relax. We can't, if we make mistakes, we can blame it on the weather. And but that was the NFL photo of the year.
Yeah, and if you're just listening, you check us out on YouTube, and because the picture's pretty cool. Mike just splashing through a whole lot of water, catching a ball, getting tackled. So,
Yeah,
yeah. But going
caught it
back
on
to your, what's
I
that?
caught it on the 13 yard line, and I slid into the end zone.
That's
Then he got
awesome.
tagged out by the Dolphin guy on the one.
All right. Well, yeah. How many touchdowns you have in your career?
I have
Nine.
9.
Nine. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I thought I read. So, 9 times what I had, but that's okay. I count all my preseason ones in Pittsburgh. I think I had like 3 in the preseason in Pittsburgh. So at least a couple. I count those too. But when somebody gives me a hard time and they say, you only had one touchdown in the NFL, and I'll be like, how many did you have?
True.
So I
True.
have one more than 99.9% of America. So
Absolutely.
that's my claim to
Absolutely.
fame. So yeah, so I got to Pittsburgh with some tread on my tire, and then unfortunately, the tread wore off quickly with a couple knee injuries, and that was the end of that. But Mike, and the cool thing about when I had you, I mean, you were my position coach, so we spend a lot of time as a position coach for those listeners that don't know. I mean, you're spending the bulk of your time with your position coach, and then after I left, I think a year or two later, kind of ascended to offensive coordinator, and that's a little different. You don't have the same interaction like you do in that position room, and then obviously, between coordinating and then 3 NFL head jobs with the Bills, the Jaguars, and the Titans, you're in kind of different roles at that point. So I'm glad I caught you when I did. Not that I wouldn't have liked you as a head coach, but I like that we got to spend more time together.
Well, I was no different. I didn't change. Sometimes, especially the head coaching job can change a lot of people, and I never changed. I had a balance in my life. I loved what I was doing when I went into the office, but I also knew I had a family that I was going to go home to every night, and that maintaining that balance allowed me to stay in the league for 33 years, like I
Yeah,
did.
yeah. So yeah, let's maybe talk a little bit about that because we were able to hook up a couple weeks back. I was down in Florida and got to visit you at your home, and we went out to lunch and we were kind of talking some of the stories of your head coaching days. And I'd love for you to share some of that with the listeners. But talk about that. I mean, you played all these years, you coached a lot of years, and you finally get that the head job in Buffalo. I mean, what did that mean to you at the time? I mean, how does you don't grow up. I mean, I didn't grow up dreaming to be an NFL head coach, right? I dreamt of being an NFL player, but obviously you make that transition. And obviously, and when you got in coaching, I'm sure you had it in your mind that, hey, I'd love to be a head coach someday. What did that mean to you getting that first crack at it?
Well, I was fortunate we were being in Pittsburgh, having some success offensively. My first year as a coordinator, we went to the AFC Championship game. We ended up losing to New England, who eventually went on to win one of their Super Bowls. But I had interviewed with some other teams. I had not gotten a job, and actually, I had declined a couple interviews just for personal reasons. And so when Buffalo came around, I almost thought like, hey, I do want to be a head coach. I had a goal when I was coaching to be a head coach. I started as a quality control coach, and I said in 10 years is my goal to be a head coach. My 10th year, Buffalo offers me the job, and I went in there. Uh, the the general manager was the former general manager of the Steelers, so I had a personal relationship, and
Tom Donahoe.
Tom Donahoe.
Yeah.
And I mean, I go back to Tom even as a player. He brought me into Pittsburgh as a player, so it was an easy transition for me with that. But yeah, I had some obstacles when I got there. The defensive staff had been tampered with the previous head coach. so I had to deal with them. I literally had
Pampered, meaning he had gone on to another team and kind of had a side deal.
yeah, he went on to another team and offered my basically the staff at the Bills, a
Who were
contract
under contract still.
who are under contract with the Bills, and I
Right.
thought, well, I could fire them and then they can just leave and go make more money, or which will open up a door in the NFL that if you act bad, you can get fired and make more money somewhere else. And I'm like, I can't let that happen. So I stuck with them. I'm not sure I'd do that again, but as a rookie head coach, I made that decision. The owner had a lot to do with that, Mr. Wilson, and but we had a good defense. We did. I can't. We were number two in the NFL. They were number two when I took the job, and we started 0-4 in Buffalo my rookie year, and you really
Not
don't
the
want
way you want to start off when you when you're just getting going.
not in Buffalo.
Yeah, yeah.
They're ready to string you up.
Some sleepless nights, I'm sure.
And I went into the team and I said, "Look, this is the way I know how to do things. I don't have a file in my cabinet that says 0-4. What do you do next?" I said, "This is the way we're going to do things." I stuck with it, and we ended up winning 9 of the next 11 games, having to beat Pittsburgh, ironically, where I just came from in the last game of the year to make the playoffs, and we lost a close game to them, but. Uh,
Not a high percentage of NFL teams are making the playoffs after starting 0-4.
no, it'd have been one of maybe the second team in NFL history to do it, but
Yeah.
we had a chance to do it. But I learned something that year. We lost a couple games, close games, mainly by a play or two. And I learned that plays just don't make differences in games; they make the difference in the season. So it's you lose a close game, week 3 or week 4, it can be you don't have to beat Pittsburgh in week 16.
Right.
So I learned a lot of things that year, and we struggled the next year. Our owner had not fired, but cut our starting quarterback. Our team was excited. They thought we were very good when that season ended, and we cut our starting quarterback, Drew Bledsoe, and started a rookie quarterback, and I that it kind of started going downhill from there. And I just thought, this ownership is in a different path of how they want to do things, and it started to affect my family, and I've already mentioned my family is important to me. That they're much more important than football. But when they were having to be escorted to our car at home games in Buffalo after a loss, my second year, I just thought, this is not what I got into being a head coach for, and I ended up deciding that I was going to resign. And it was after a conversation one night with my wife, and I said, "Look, because of the situations that had just taken place here in home games and the abuse and verbal abuse if we don't win the game, and having to be escorted to by the police to get to our car after a loss, I don't know what happens if this happens next year." And I said, you guys move back to Pittsburgh. Um, I'll stay here and commute back and forth. And the next morning, I'd never spent a night in my office in the NFL in all my years coaching. A lot of guys do, which I
Mhm.
think they either mismanage their time or they don't want to go home. And I just said, I'm not going to live away from you. So I went in and resigned, and that morning, and really have never looked back.
Yeah.
I, I,
I mean, that says something, Mike, because I mean, NFL head coaching jobs don't grow on trees, man. And for you to put your family first, and hey, I mean, anybody should do that, but not everybody does, right? And so, I mean, that takes some moxie to give up one of the 32 positions that everybody in
yeah,
football wants to have, right?
I didn't know if anybody had ever done that. So I had that conversation with my wife, Betsy. And I said, we may not never get another job in the NFL because I don't know how people are going to react to this. And I said, we'll move to Florida where we're both from, and I'll be a high school coach or something down there, but we'll be, around our
Yeah.
family. I have no idea how this is going to turn out, but it turned out okay.
Yeah.
We had to, I
Well,
got more
so
opportunity.
from there, I forget your path from there, but how long
Went to
before we
Miami.
got?
Went to Miami with Coach Saban,
Oh
and
yeah,
that was a that was an unpleasant experience for a year. But
speaking of sleeping in your office, a little
no, I
demanding, a
did.
little
I
demanding.
still didn't. No, I
I know
still
you
didn't.
didn't, but he probably would have liked you to.
It's funny. Thursdays when I was in Pittsburgh all those years, I was there for 8 years. I went home every night, even in Buffalo. Thursdays you should have most of the plan in, and I'd always go home about 7:30 or 8 o'clock. In Miami, I got up the first time, and I had a really experienced staff, some future head coaches, college and NFL, and they're all sitting there and they're looking at me like, "Where are you going?" I said, "Well, I'm going home. I'm going home to have dinner." "Well, Nick's not doesn't want you." "I mean, what do you mean Nick doesn't want me to go home? I'm done. I'm ready to go. We're all set for Friday and we're ready to." "I don't think they want you to leave." I'm like, "Well, I'm leaving." And I every Thursday night I got up, I left all these men in this room because of the fear they had for Coach Saban.
Yeah. There's different ways to win, man. That's for sure, right? You
There
hear these
is.
stories. I mean, some guys are you know, tough guys work burning the candle at both ends, wear yourself out. I mean, there's just different ways to do it. And obviously, Nick didn't have great success in the NFL in that one year, but I mean, he obviously figured it out in college and had a pretty good
Yeah, yeah,
track record.
I gave him credit because he knew he couldn't coach in the NFL and got out. So I mean that says a
Yeah.
lot about his smarts, but he can win 100 national championships as long as I didn't have to work for him again.
I love it.
It was not fun. And
Oh,
I knew that I'd heard stories and it was absolutely true.
all right. So
From
let's
there, yeah,
talk about head coach job number two.
I went to Atlanta from Miami. We had four, successful seasons. They had never had back-to-back winning seasons. We had four in a row. I was fortunate to be with Matt Ryan. We
Right.
drafted him my first year there, and that success got me the job in Jacksonville. And I had opportunities to go a couple other places, but now at this point in my career, I'm trying to work my way back to Florida and be near my extended family. And so I knew the Jacksonville job was going to probably come up if they were not successful. And so I bypassed a couple other opportunities and I did not regret it, but had an opportunity to go to Jacksonville in 2012. The unfortunate part was they just changed ownership, and I literally was interviewing with an owner that had been uh, been there for 3 days.
Yeah.
Really had no idea about football. He asked Shad Khan asked me if players played both ways. I mean, it was
Oh,
yeah,
that's
eh, yeah.
the first red flag.
I was sitting there wondering, boy, I've already got in, one job in Buffalo with an ownership that I didn't agree with the path. I'm not sure this one's going to be much better, but I wanted to go home. And actually, my son Patrick was a scout there. So I thought, what are the odds of 32 teams that I can land a job where my son's working
Where he already was a
where
scout.
he already was? And unfortunately, we did not have a good year. Roster wise, we were struggling a little bit and only won 2 games. But we had our guys played. Even the last game of the year, I had an official come up to me and say, I've never seen a team in a position you guys are in that plays with the intensity that your team. I said, well, they do every week. I mean, they gave us a chance to win every week, but we're just not talented enough,
Yeah.
to make the difference in winning some of these close games. So only was a 1 year. I had a cup of coffee. The worst part about it was I was upset that my son was fired as well because of his last name
Right.
and that I couldn't work with him anymore. So
Yeah, but and now he's landed and he's been with Detroit quite a while now, right?
yeah, he's been with the Lions for 11 years now. So things
He's doing
work.
something right. Their scouting's paying off because man, they've had a
Yeah,
nice run here on draft picks the last few years. So
yeah, they're fun to play. They're fun to watch.
yeah. Well, going back to your story about Buffalo, and I think we talked about this when I saw you, but I mean, that there's an ugly side to having your spotlight on you, right? I mean, the family stuff that you had to endure. Now, recently, you hear the stories of Dan Campbell having to sell his house because he's got people coming up on his front, knocking on his door after a tough playoff loss and stuff. I mean, just you don't sign up for that stuff when you're dreaming of being a head coach in
No,
the NFL.
no, and you got to tell your wife, pay with cash. Don't play with a credit card. And it's not like our name's Miller or John.
Right. Right.
So I'd be careful of paying with a credit card right now. With if
Yeah.
it's after a loss, don't do it.
You're not related to that guy, are you?
Yeah, well, yeah, there's not a lot of Mularkeys in the NFL.
Yeah.
So
Well, that's interesting. So you leave Jacksonville, and then what's the next stop?
Tennessee, I took a year off in Jacksonville.
And
Catch
figured
my
out
breath.
where you wanted to be the rest of your life, which is a great spot. I won't
I did.
divulge where it's at because I know you said it's a secret spot and you don't want anybody to know about it. And I tell you, I had the opportunity to visit your house and walking in that front door, it's not a bad sight line you've got out there.
Yeah, that I mean, if anything came from that year, we found a place to live forever. And
Yeah, well, it's an awesome home, awesome spot. So I'm happy for you for that. And I'm
took a
also
year off.
happy for that apartment above your garage.
I did the offers there. I mean, it's
I
a
know, I
great.
remember.
Uh, no, then I took the year off, caught my breath, caught up with family, and then I went to Tennessee with Ken Wisenhunt. I went to coach tight ends there, and I ended up being the assistant head coach my second year there. And we were having, we were not very good those first couple of years. We were obviously we had the first pick of the draft in 16, but Ken got fired in 15. They made me the interim head coach for my third time being a head coach. And I wasn't even sure I wanted to be, but I was kind of put in an awkward position.
I guess I'll be a head coach of your NFL team. I mean,
Not, it's especially in the middle of the season, you're physically exhausted. Now you've got to take over a team that there's a lot of problems with, and you can't fix any of them immediately. And somehow you're supposed to all of a sudden turn this team around and start winning. And we won 2 games of the last 7 that I was the interim coach, and they it was interesting. They came in with 2 games ago in that season of the 15 season and said, "You're going to be the next head coach when the season's over with. You have to just sit tight because we have to go through some other interviews," which I still regret to this day that I sat there and did that, knowing some of my best friends are interviewing, knowing they have zero chance of getting the job, and I know they spent a lot of time prepping for
because of the NFL's mandated, the Rooney Rule,
Rooney Rule.
gotta interview minorities and other
Yes.
folks. Yeah.
Yeah, I think they ended up interviewing 4 other guys, and then I was the fifth interview, and it was interesting because even the GM who had just been hired, he's sitting there interviewing me, and I'm like, dude, I have the job already. You could ask me any question you want. They've already told me I've got the job, and I am not proud of that
Yeah.
whatsoever. That's not how I operate. I always tell people do the right things. That was not the right thing. But and I'm
I will
still
say this, Mike, just, listen to that story. I mean, not a lot of interim guys that go 2-7 are handed the reins, right?
no,
I mean, so
no,
that says something about, you and what they thought of you. And, I think of you like that as well. But that does say something because there's not a lot of dudes taking over and winning 2 out of 9 and getting that job. So
no, and the thing about it, the fans were not excited about it, and I knew they weren't
I
excited about
imagine.
it. And I can't argue with them. I have a 2-14 record in Jacksonville. Now I'm 2-7 in my interim job, and they're like, "What are we doing?" And I think the owners knew what they were doing because we turned around. There are a lot of things that had to be changed. The coaching staff, our roster, our facility, our
Hmm.
mindset, and our culture had to change. And
Yeah.
that's that is a minor miracle with NFL franchises to fix any of those. But we fixed all of them. And I got to hire my own staff for the first time of the 3 head coaching jobs. And I took a different approach this time. I was going to make it fun for the players. So I did a lot of things different that the players enjoyed coming to work every day. They actually couldn't wait to get in the building. And that first year we ended up going 9-7. We missed, like my first year in Buffalo, we missed the playoffs by a play somewhere down the stretch to make the playoffs after being the worst team in the NFL the prior
Yeah.
year. We had the first pick of the draft. So when you have the first pick, that's telling you this is one of the worst teams. But, we had a winning record, missed the playoffs by a game. And then the next year, we were sitting 8-4. We were leading the division. And we lost a couple close games, and then something happened with ownership, and they decided they were if I didn't win and get to the playoffs, I was going to get fired. So the pressure by the media of us having to win and the questions to our players and coaches was just astronomical about my job, not about us having to win a game.
Right.
But we had to beat Jacksonville, which is ironic too. The last game of the year, who was now leading the division, to make it to the playoffs. But if we didn't win that game, I was going to get fired, and it was evident by the media. And we beat them. Now we're in the playoffs. First time that we're in the playoffs. I can't tell you, been 8 years. It's been 14 years since they've won a playoff game.
Mm-hmm.
But now now we're in the playoffs. We have back-to-back winning seasons, and we're getting ready to go to Kansas City, and it amps up even twofold that if we don't beat Kansas City in the wild card game, I'm going to get fired. And I went to management and I said, look, I need somebody to kind of control this thing because it's such a distraction to our football team. And it just got worse. And it was, you'd think this would be the greatest. This is my first playoff, game as an NFL head coach. And what we did to that franchise, the changing the culture and changing everything to now we are a team. We know we can win every week. And we go into Kansas City. We're down 21-3 at halftime. We come back to beat the Chiefs in Kansas City. At that time, I think it was the second biggest comeback for a road team in the NFL history. And we went in the locker room, and one of the players, Brian Arakpo, one of our captain linebackers, he before anybody said anything, he got up and he said, "Hey, Coach Mularkey, this game ball is for you. For all the BS that you've had to put up with the last few weeks to get us to this point, this game ball is for you." And then I responded and I said, "Well, I've got game balls for everybody in this locker room. All the players and coaches in this locker room get a game ball." And they were, place was going crazy. I was not even happy because I was so mad still
Right.
of the position that I was put in and my family was put in. It was awful
Yeah,
for my.
and I mean, nobody stepped up and said, "Hey, we got your back." He's his
Yeah,
job,
nobody. I mean,
GM, ownership.
well, the next thing that happened was as I'm going to my press conference, which head coach does after each game, the PR director said, "Coach, certainly you mean a game ball for the owner and the general manager." And I looked him right in the eye and I said, "No, I was pretty specific. I gave a game ball to the coaches and the players. I'm not giving a game ball to the ownership or the general manager who are about to fire me if I don't beat the Chiefs."
Yeah.
So I was specific. And then I go to the press conference, and the first three questions were about, all this news about me being fired. And I said, "Well, I just assumed I'd be fired because nobody stood up and said, 'Hey, no, he's our head coach moving forward.'" So that made me mad that was a topic other than that we just beat the Chiefs in a huge comeback. So, anyways, we went to New England the next week. We got beat pretty soundly. Again, they went on to win the Super Bowl again. But after that, you know,
So you've come back, you made the playoffs, you win a road playoff game on the against the
first
Chiefs.
first first playoff win in 14 years.
Down 21-3, come back, win the playoff game. Not most teams aren't looking to replace their head coach.
I've not seen. I haven't heard of it since.
No,
Right?
so I'm just setting the stage for people in case they're not keeping up here.
Yeah,
So
no, you don't think you're going to get fired after back-to-back winning seasons and taking them to the playoffs, and yeah, you don't think that's going to happen. But even after, I think I had to win the Super Bowl to keep my job. I mean, that's just to where it was. They had some agenda, but it's even funny. Before the Chiefs game, I pulled my whole coaching staff in the locker room. It was just us, and I said, "Look, I think everybody in here knows we may not have our jobs if we don't beat these guys. I think they have an agenda, and I'd certainly like to throw a wrench into their agenda and beat the Chiefs." And every guy and I hugged because we knew if you get let go, you're never together when you get let go. And I said, I thanked every one of them. They were all like, "Coach, we're going to go beat the Chiefs for you." And next morning after the game, somebody before I walked in the room left a big lug wrench on my desk in the staff room.
I love
And
it.
it's like, they're like, Coach, we got your back. And so I knew they all did. Word was that they wanted me to make some changes in the coaching staff. And I mean, how can I do that when we just did what we just accomplished? You know, guys all did their job. And I wasn't afraid to let guys go. I let two of my best friends go um, those 2 years. And so it wasn't about relationships. It was about winning and doing their jobs. And so, anyways, after the New England game, I got a call to come in and see him in the morning, and I'm like, well, I know pretty much what's about to happen. And so I called my agent. I said, hey, do me a favor, call Ian Rappaport, one of the source guys. You know, they have all
The guy in NFL.
the guy. I said, will you let him know that I'm getting a brand new contract in the morning, knowing I was getting fired.
That's a boss move right there. I love it.
And well, I had a policy with my coaches. I said, if you ever talk to these guys without going through our PR department, I'm going to fire you on the spot. And here I am now. Now I'm doing just that. So it goes out across the country. It's
So
social
as you're
media.
driving in to get fired on
Oh,
the owner's TV in his office as he's waiting for
yes,
you, Titans
yes,
are extending Mike Mularkey 3 years,
yes.
which makes sense. You've got him to the
Well,
playoffs, two winning years in a row.
well, you would think, but so when I walked in, there wasn't much conversation. It was pretty much, you are fired. But
That is
all I
that's
wanted
incredible,
was
man.
just a minute to see their faces of, we are not giving him a contract. We are fired. So I have no regrets. I'm very proud of what we did there. Our guys, my coaching staff did an amazing job, and our players did too. And just picture Mike Vrabel. They're talking about what a great job he did. Well, he walked into a team that just won a playoff game. He didn't walk into a 2-14 team.
Yeah, Rabes was born on third base.
Oh
Just
gosh.
kidding, Mike. If you're reading, if you're watching this, we love you. He was
Yeah.
with us in Pittsburgh, and Mike's a great guy. But and he ultimately got the heave ho too, as all NFL coaches do at some point,
Yeah.
unless you're with the
No,
Steelers. Unless you're with the Steelers, that's incredible.
absolutely.
Three
Yeah.
coaches since 1969. It's just incredible and a
Nothing to
testament
say about
to
that.
their ownership, right? I mean, it's
Yeah.
to those coaches, obviously, Coach Noel, Bill Cowher, and Mike Tomlin, but the Rooneys are quality, and it all flows downhill, it seems.
The Rooney's are why they are successful. I mean,
Yeah,
that's ownership. It starts with ownership, and I've been with some very good ones and not so good.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, certainly. And I think I always loved, Mr. Rooney was always there, and he always had an ear for you. But he always had a Christmas present for you too on your stool, which I always thought was a nice little touch. People think, oh, pro football players they make all this money. Da, da. But you know what? Everybody loves free stuff.
No,
So
it's funny because that's maybe one of the things that started my downfall was one of those two games that we lost on the road on the West Coast trip when we were 8-4. General manager came into my office and he said, Amy is our owner, very upset with the way we've played and the way. And I said, I know that. I'm sure she is. I am too. Obviously, I'm sure you are too. And I said, but I'd like to, I got the message from her. Now, if you could send one to her, but I'm used to Mr. Rooney. If you win or lose, he's going to walk around at every guy's hand in that locker room and shake their hand. Every single game. I was with him 11 years.
yeah,
11 years. He shook some, he knew we were trying to do our best compared to when we lost, no show in the locker room, no, just get out of the
yeah,
box and
just a
leave the
different
stadium.
mindset.
I said, that's what I'm used to. Maybe you need to tell her, guys need to see it in the locker room after a loss, because I can pretty much tell you they've just killed themselves to try to win that game for her.
Yeah,
Uh, that might have started it, but that's how mad I was about her not showing up in that locker room.
yeah. Well, you talk about good ownership, you talk about mindset, you talk about guys playing the way you like the game to be played. You spent some time with one of the best tight ends in NFL history, as far as from a receiving standpoint, Tony Gonzalez, and I know there was I know he came out with a story that happened when you were, I think, the Atlanta OC, right? And
Yes.
share that story with listeners, because I always get a kick out of that, because some guys are just wired a little differently. Like there's some guys in the NFL that like their stats and whatnot, and And Tony's probably one of those guys. I think most people would agree on that, but share that story because I think that one's a pretty funny one.
I can pretty much assure you that Tony was in it for the numbers. I'm not sure how important a Super Bowl ring was, or Super Bowls, or championships. I was around him for 3 years in Atlanta. I was used to Bruners and Mitch Lyons tight ends. I had a tight end my first year in Atlanta, Ben Hartsock, big blocking tight end. I've really never had one of these guys. It's, split out like a receiver, like a Kelsey. Um, so I told the management I need a blocking tight end. I've won a lot of games with a blocking tight end.
Right.
They trade for Tony Gonzalez, who at the time was my highest grading tight end that blocked in coming out of college. But at that point in his career, it wasn't about that anymore. And so you know, it was what it was. We traded for him. I had him, and so I sat down with him. I showed him film of you and Bruner just absolutely crushing defenders play after play after play. And I could see he's like, "Why are you showing me this?" I'm like, "This is what I expect. This is what I demand from when I'm coaching tight ends, whether I'm an offensive coordinator or I'm a head coach.
This is what it takes for us to win.
I like violent players." Okay, that's how we've won. I've won over all these years, was guys' effort and physical play. And he looked at me right in the eye and he said, "Well, I don't block power," which was one of our top plays, running plays,
Right. Smash
which is
mouth
very,
football.
very physical smash mouth football. And I wasn't looking at him when he said it. And I looked him back and I said, "What did you just say to me?" He goes, I don't block power." And I said, "Well, we run power. It's one of our top plays." He goes, "Yeah, but haven't you watched film on me in Kansas City? I split out like a wide receiver." I said, "Well, haven't you watched us on film? You're going to line up next to the tackle." He goes, "I'm going to line up like a tight end." I go, "Yeah, you're going to line up like a tight end." And from that point on, it was downhill from our relationship. And I went down to the head coach and I was like, we have a guy that's already telling me he's not going to block in the run game. And
Kind of puts a crimp in your offensive play calling.
well, I mean, if you're a pretty good defense coordinator, you knew not to load up on Tony's side in the run game.
Yeah.
So now I'm no dummy either. If it was 4th and 4, I was going to throw the ball to Tony Gonzalez. He ended
Yeah.
up catching 200 and some passes in the 3 years I was there. He got plenty of passes, but he wasn't going to block, which,
Was there ever a time you didn't throw the ball to Tony?
there was. Yeah, there was. Like I said earlier, the Falcons never had back-to-back winning seasons. So my first year with a blocking tight end, we won 11 games. Um, Ben Hartsock moved on in free agency. Next year, we're sitting at I think we're sitting 6-7, and we have to win the last 3 games to break the 44-year curse of the Atlanta Falcons. And we win the next 2. We have to go to Tampa to beat Tampa, not to make the playoffs, just to break the record of 44 years. And we're beating him at the end of the game, and I'm trying to run the ball to kill the clock and get the game over with.
To win.
Win the game. Yeah, to win.
Right.
I'll say this, and people that know me, when I call plays to win the game. That's the only reason every play mattered about the game. Didn't
Makes
matter
sense.
about, yeah. So Mike Smith, our head coach, comes on this last drive, a minute to go, and he's like, "Throw the ball to Tony Gonzalez on 1st down." I said, I denied his request. The head coach, "No, I'm not throwing the ball to anybody. We're going to run the ball. We're going to run the clock
Throw an
out."
incompletion and stop the clock and give Tampa the ball back, right?
Yeah. Yeah. 2nd down, he gets in my head, "Throw the ball to Tony Gonzalez." And I'm like, "No, I'm not throwing the ball to anybody." So I don't. 3rd down, he says, "Run a shovel to Tony." Now, we don't have a shovel play to any player on our team. I'm like
Drawn up in the dirt.
I'm going to design the shovel in the next 25 seconds. So I called a play, an out of pocket play, and Matt Ryan came out of pocket and he got absolutely blown up and threw it into the dirt, stopped the clock. And we ended up winning the game. Go in the locker room. The locker room's like we've made the playoffs. I mean, it's just ecstatic. We just broke this curse, and the owner is just going, he's so happy. I go down, I shake everybody's hand like I did every game, win or loss. I always did that. I go down to Tony. He wants to he wants to, get in my face. I don't know why. He's called me, pretty bad names. And at this time, the owner is about two lockers down. I'm trying to consider, do I do something like I want to? I'd like to knock his teeth out, but the owner is coming in, so I'm gonna make a good decision. I'm just gonna turn around and go back in the coach's locker room, get showered, dress, and get ready to go home. So I don't know anything that's going on until I
So
get
he's
on the.
worked up. He's
Oh,
throwing not so nice words at you.
yeah, yeah, he's. So I don't know why. On the plane ride, I asked, what the heck? Why did I have to throw the ball to Tony Gonzalez? Well, he had 999 catches. And I'm like, I didn't know that. And I really never cared about how many catches a guy had. I mean, I had
Right.
no idea all the way to the plane ride home. But he ended up catching 200 and some more passes the next year, a couple of
Yeah.
years. So it was it just, there's guys like that. There's probably about a dozen guys in the NFL that I'm not on their Christmas list, but
Yeah.
I was blessed to be around a lot of guys like you that, did it the right way. And he wasn't one of them. So I knew I didn't get an invite to the Hall of Fame ceremony when he went
Yeah.
in.
Well, you know, speaking of Hall of Fame, I mean, you know, we had the opportunity to play and coach with quite a few, even from the short time I was with the Steelers. But Dermani, Dawson, Jerome Bettis, Bill Cowher. I think probably Hines Ward might have a shot here in the near future as
Good.
well.
Yeah, you should.
So that's pretty. It's pretty cool. As I was telling Dermani, I said, "Hey, I never had any inclination that I was ever Hall of Fame worthy, but as you get older, you appreciate those guys." And Dermani always did it the right way, right? He was just a humble dude,
Oh,
super nice guy, but just happened to be, probably the best center in my opinion of probably all time, and just a good dude. And that seemed to be, the case with the Steelers in general. Everybody seemed pretty good. And again, it came from ownership. It came to Bill, to his coaches like you and the leadership on the team, and I mean that's everything when it comes to winning in the NFL or winning at any level, winning in business. You've got to have it, and it's got to start from the top. So,
yeah.
well, I appreciate my years with you, Mike, and really appreciate you coming on and sharing those stories. I mean, we learned a lot today. It might have got some people in trouble. I don't know. We'll have to find out.
Oh, you know what?
The tampering, and
I'm writing a book. I'm writing a book. It's going slowly, but I'm just writing. I want my kids and my 5 grandkids to know about their dad, their
yeah,
Campy,
yeah,
his career, and there's pretty much everything I've said to you is going to be in it. And
yep,
if it ruffles some feathers, it's all right. Ours were ruffled enough that
yeah.
it needs to be out there sometimes.
Well, it's a great thing to document too, right? I mean, there aren't too many people, like I said earlier, that have been able to coach 3 NFL teams to play and coach for 33 years in the league. It's an amazing journey you've had, and you're doing it right, my friend, down at your beach house in northern Florida, and I look forward to visiting you down there again sometime soon. But
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Thanks, Mitch.
I
Appreciate it.
appreciate your time, and don't be a stranger, and we'll visit again. So, but that concludes this episode. Again, this episode brought to you by Mitch Lyons Wealth, your best game plan to protect, grow, and win retirement. And we just thank Mike for coming on today.